After we did the piece on colonialism, of course, one of the things that always comes up, not just with the piece, but also with people, they say colonialism happened, and African countries have had independence for so many years. So why are you guys still talking about this? But the truth is that the effects of colonialism and the systems, the structures that were happening then didn't really end with independence in the various African countries.
As in the first musical or literary performance around the colonial era, we wanted to appeal primarily to children, aged 8 and over again. And even though we've performed both pieces in front of adults and children and young adults, the main targeted audience remains children. Wangari and I usually performed the German version of the first performance piece together with a translator who also appeared on stage. And I had written a script in which Wangari sometimes reads in German and sometimes the translator translates the content paragraph by paragraph. And sometimes they were both speaking simultaneously at different volumes.
Als der belgische König seine Rede beendet hatte, ging Lumumba zum Rednerpult.
And it worked quite well, but whenever we performed the piece, the English version of the piece, in front of an English-speaking audience, I always thought, okay, this is just more powerful and more direct. And that's why we performed the German version of The Past is Present together with an actress from Hamburg, from Germany, Charity Collin.
Ich finde diese Stücke so besonders wichtig, weil das Themen sind, die so früh wie möglich zugänglich sein sollten. Und das machen wir hiermit. Oft denkt man, dass Kinder mit vielen schweren Themen nicht zurechtkommen. Ich bin froh, dass Sven das anders sieht und ich sehe es auch anders. Die kommen, glaube ich, oft sogar ein bisschen besser zurecht damit als Erwachsene.
So we premiered the piece in Germany. First there was a show with Sven and Charity for children in German.
Das war damals der billigste Wagen in Burkina Faso zum Dienstwagen für sich.
And then we did the piece in both German and English. One of the things that we would do during the performance is to ask people to just think at the top of their mind what they know about specific people, specific countries. And you could clearly see that what was being said is actually what is in mainstream media.
Germany! Oh, winter! And I can imagine all the nice things that you can do during winter. Skiing and snowboarding. Perfect right there.
And after the premiere in Munich, Charity and I performed the piece at the Kinder Klangfest at Kammerspiele in Hamburg.
Es sind die Kolonialherren, die Afrika verschuldet haben. Wir hatten mit den Schulden nichts zu tun. Deshalb können wir sie auch nicht bezahlen. Schulden sind Neokolonialismus, bei dem sich die Kolonialherren in technische Attentäter verwandelt haben.
I had written a relatively long chapter on the problem of debt, and I tried to make a relatively complex speech by Thomas Sankara more understandable for children. And in this speech, Sankara speaks about the role of the World Bank and the role of the IMF and the intentions behind their policies. And I really thought, okay, this time I went too far. So this is too complex and children might fall asleep after 3 minutes, but it worked really well. Everyone stayed super focused, super quiet, super attentive. And again, after the performance, the children asked the most amazing questions.
In den Vorstellungen bzw. nach den Vorstellungen kommen häufig noch Menschen auf uns zu aus dem Publikum nach der Fragerunde und bedanken sich, weil auch gerade Erwachsene diese Informationen nicht hatten, nicht kannten, diesen Blickwinkel nicht kannten und sind zu Tränen gerührt, also wirklich am Weinen. Ja, und das sind so Momente, die mir sehr deutlich machen, oder bestätigen, dass es einfach richtig ist, was wir tun und wichtig ist, das, was wir tun.
In der Nacht arbeitete er an seinen Reden und Pamphleten und am nächsten Tag stellte er sich auf die Gartenmauer der Schule und von dort aus...
During the research, I read a lot about Muammar Gaddafi, and I was shocked at how little I knew about his fight against neo-colonialism and imperialism. So I wrote a long chapter about the positive effects of his policies, especially for the people of Libya. And it was quite controversial because most people in the global north see Gaddafi as this crazy terrorist who robbed his own country. And the chapter opened up a different perspective.
Wenige Stunden nachdem gefunden und von den Aufständischen getötet wurde, gab Clinton ein offizielles Statement ab. Mit einem triumphierenden Lächeln sagte sie: We came, we saw, we died. Wir kamen, wir sahen, er starb.
Then later we did a show here in Nairobi. Oh, I absolutely loved that show. One, because I think a bulk of the people who came for that show had not seen the colonialism show. So it was also one reaching out to a different audience, a different demographics.
Mko sawa? Bado mnanipatia gas? Na vikombe za bunge mvirudisha? In the morning show afterwards, one of the parents asked me, did you guys know that there was going to be protests on some of these issues and you organized this show? Or did you put this show very quickly together over the last 2 weeks since it began?
I think one of the interesting things that actually happened before we did the show here in Kenya is that so there had been conversations by the Kenyan government and the IMF about this loan that the government wants. And this and other reasons sparked a countrywide protest for almost a month.
And I just want to confirm that we did not have prior intelligence that there was going to be a protest in Kenya. And like you've already heard, that this show already did a premiere in April. It's been about a year in the making. And I'm so glad that we get to present this to you guys today.
The topics that I worked on, I chose to focus on things that one, affect me directly. So definitely I had to speak about travel because visas are one of the most discouraging things about travel, I think. So we spoke about travel, we spoke about passport privilege because this can be clearly seen in the weight of the passports. If you look at the passport index from all the years, you can see that the passports with the weakest, which are the weakest around the world, are African passports.
To be human is to travel, to explore, to see.
And I think it's really important. People are becoming more vocal. People are becoming more involved. I think the previous generation has always been like, okay, well, we've gone through so much. We just want peace. Things are not happening, but nobody's fighting. The current generation is saying, you know, the absence of violence does not mean that there is peace or prosperity. We actually want to be involved. We want to know about these things. There has been also a whole discussion in Kenya and especially on social media, and especially to the US embassy saying, you know, it doesn't make sense the amounts that you charge for your visas, and yet you know that you have a quota that is getting visas and you're not refunding anything. So that people are actually getting to speak about these things, for me, is really, very important. And I'm hoping that in the coming years, it won't be just talk, but we would actually see results out of it. And I think especially on the issue of debts, I think it's very important. You know, the World Bank, the IMF, and other countries are lending money to African countries, knowing very well that that money is not being used for development, but they don't really care because their plan is not to develop the African continent. No, it is to just keep them in chains of paying debt over debt over debt. And I think this is really, really important to keep having this discussion in as many forums as possible.